Thank you. Thank you. Well, it said that Alexander had a dream. Alexander the Great came to Egypt 24 centuries ago, and he was camping on the north coast of Egypt near a small fisherman village called Rakotis. Then one night, he had a dream in which the gods told him, "You will build your city here." But he never knew that the city which will bear his name forever is going to be the center of the Hellenistic culture and the most powerful city in the ancient world. But unfortunately, not anymore. Recently, Alexandria is being destroyed. We're almost losing most of our old buildings, our built heritage, and our modern history as well. I'm really afraid that one day I will not be able to show my kids how great this city once was. But that's not the end of the world, because Alexandria was destroyed 2 times during its long history. The first time was after the Arab conquest of Egypt, when they moved the capital from Alexandria to a new city, which is Cairo now. And Alexandria fell into a long decline and finally became ruins. The second time was in 1882, after the British occupation and the bombardment of Alexandria, when the old city was almost destroyed. But that wouldn't stop the city to grow up again. And the next following century marked the most glorious time of the cosmopolitan Alexandria. But once again, things went down, till after the revolution of 2011. Many of the owners and the contractors started to demolish most of the old buildings in order to replace it by high-rise buildings, and the urban fabric of Alexandria had been dramatically changed, resulting in many, many problems. But in addition to that, and to the loss of the building and its architectural and cultural values, we are losing our culture and our traditions and our identity. We are losing our history, because simply buildings are not only some bricks and walls. Buildings are the containers of our memories. I live in Alexandria in a quiet street. It's around 400 meters. And before 6 years ago, there were only 2 apartments buildings, and the rest were villas. But now, there are only 3 villas are remains. Could you imagine that only in 4 years, we have lost almost 100 protected buildings out of 1,135? And the worst is we have lost them also from our memories, because most of them were not documented at all. So sooner or later, nobody would remember about them. And that's because Alexandria has a very little information about itself, or to be exact, the modern Alexandria. Much of the data about the city is fragmented, outdated, or even it's not telling the true story. And the last complete book was describing Alexandria, and every part of it was written by the British writer A.M. Forrester. And it was published in 1922. So we don't know exactly what Alexandria looks like now. And that was a motivation for many projects and initiatives in a bid to save our city and its heritage. Description of Alexandria is one of them. As you see from the name, it's inspired by the French book Description de l'Égypte, which was done by the French expedition in Egypt and was published between 1809 and 1829. Also, the book is inspired by another 2 main books. One of them is called Beschreibung von Arabien. It was a kind of a travel book and was describing many Arab countries, including Egypt. That book was published in Copenhagen in 1772. And the other main one is a book of David Roberts' drawings, the Scotch painter, about the main buildings, sites, and monuments in Egypt. That book was published between 1846 and 1848 and remains as a great and major reference for researchers and architects in Egypt. So, Description of Alexandria is a cultural and artistic project that seeks to document the architecture and cultural heritage of Alexandria, presenting a true and actual image of today's Alexandria and the remains of the past. The project is characterized by sketchings, drawings, the written history, and the description about every single place in Alexandria, single place and single element. So please allow me to tell you more about the story of the project and how it started, because it started in 2009. When I was working on a small research and renovation project for a small fisherman village in Alexandria. It was in a very bad condition, and it's still. So I did an investigation with the people there in order to know their problems. Then I translated these problems into an architecture solution. But I didn't present it as a fully architecture drawings. It was just an artistic drawings, and that was fascinating because everyone there started to recognize and to memorize his house, his new house. And it was simple and clear enough for the people there who are not educated at all to understand it. And that made me think that I might use my drawings to do something useful for Alexandria. So I started to draw more and more, and to record more buildings, exhibiting these drawings in workshops and exhibition, to spread the idea and to know who else is interested in such similar projects or initiatives. Till the year 2012, I met two young architects, and we started a group. We called it Alexandria Urban Sketchers, like the International Urban Sketchers. The aim was to explore our city and to teach young architects how to draw and how to sketch, because you know sketching is the language of architecture. It's the way you express yourself and you present your idea. And we used to draw every weekend a new building or a new site in Alexandria. After a year of working, I realized that I have a very big set of my own drawings, which all have one theme, and telling or describing one story. They were describing Alexandria. And I wanted to let the other Alexandrians know and see how our city is still great and still has opportunities. So I tried to collect them and to publish it in a book, and I chose the name Description of Alexandria. The good thing is, I couldn't find any publisher, because it was just an art book, and that kind of book is not highly sellable there. Well, that's what the publisher told me, and I guess they were right. But the most important thing is that the idea itself was a little bit superficial, and it wasn't completed enough. So I spent the next following months refining and reshaping the idea, till finally it became ready to be converted from such a personal documentation project to a national documentation project, where many Alexandrian architects, researchers, and writers could participate and do something real for their own city. In order to do that, I launched a call for volunteers on social networks to gather the qualified team who will be in charge of drawing, collecting the information, and writing the history. And we started on the 14th of March, 2014, from one of the oldest sites in Alexandria, which is Pharos Island, where once used to be the ancient lighthouse of Alexandria, but now standing instead of it, the fort of Qaitbay. And now we come to the question, how exactly we describe Alexandria? Actually, we are working on two models. Firstly is a book. Secondly is a journal. The book is describing different buildings and many sites and consists of parts and volume. Part one is describing the old city of Alexandria, and as you see from the map, it's divided into 5 sections or 5 volumes. Now we are working on volume 1, which is description for the waterfront of the eastern harbor of Alexandria. We started from as I said earlier, from the fort of Qaitbay, and we will end at the new library of Alexandria. The distance between those two buildings are 4 kilometers, and there are 120 buildings. Depending on our limited resources and manpower and time, we have finished only 21 buildings. While the journal is separated issues, and every issue studying only one building, depending on its architecture or its historical value, or even the building is under threat and need a quick attention or a quick action or not. But in both the books and the journal, we are following the same structure, which consists of 4 main sections. Firstly is the architectural drawings. We draw many and different perspectives for every building, for many and different views. just to make sure we have covered all the possible views of the building. Then we go for the 2D architecture drawings, which is floor plans and elevations, of course, if it's available to access the building. Then we draw the details of the building. We draw every single detail, its motifs, decoration icons, the openings, windows, doors, and gates. The second section is the written description. After we finish the drawings, we start to analyze the building and to describe it. We describe its architectural style, the structural system, and the current condition. And then we continue describing the history of the property itself, depending on all the available books and researches. And we also refer to all the maps and the archive to know when exactly was it built and who were the original owners of the building itself. The description comes in two languages, Arabic and English, to make sure that everyone in Alexandria can read it. The third section is the memory of the place, where we write articles. These articles are derived from a questionnaire we do with the people and the users of the building, especially the old people. It's somehow like the unwritten story about the building and the surrounding environment. As we call it in the architecture field, it's the intangible heritage. Besides these articles, you will find illustrations telling the same story. So we present different materials targeting different levels of receivers and readers. If you would like to get the information through the text, you will have it. If it's easier to you to get it from a picture, you will have it. And the mixing between those two kinds of presenting the information, empowering the final result, and present a true and honest image of the building and its story. The fourth and the last section is the photography archive, which gives another level and dimension of details about the building and its surrounding environment. So, description of Alexandria is not a full architecture documentation, or at least till now. But in our case, I believe that it's really a good start, because most of the time we work from scratch. We collect new information about the building and its history. We produce new drawings and new visual memory that will never exist before. It's a fact that we remember things better when they are attached to a picture. And that could be the start for another architect or another researcher to build something on and to do more advanced research. One more thing is we can use our project to be a good material for promoting our city, because we still produce art, and art is a way to get to know the city and its architecture and its heritage and its culture in general. But the most important aim of the project is to raise the Alexandrians' awareness about our city and its heritage, about our culture and our forgotten identity, and to enhance the engagement of the society in preserving their own legacy before we lose it forever. By the implementation of the project, we can turn every Alexandrian citizen into a memory device who will keep our history in their minds and souls and will pass it from a generation to a generation. I would like also to mention that our work is not always that romantic. Let's all go draw our city and have fun. Most of the time we have problems, but we are really confident me and my little dedicated team, that we will continue. We will continue recording and drawing our present to be the history of the next generations and our future. If I had to teach my kids only one thing, that would be our culture. And that is the power of the documentation. Thank you very much for listening to me. Yeah.